One of the useful ways that trigonometry can be used is to find the distance around an object or an area. And that's what we'll have a look at when we see how to find the length of a fence in this problem. So I'll show you an example problem here, and then later on you can try your own, and I'll present the solution when you're ready. So let's go ahead and have a look at the length of a fence problem that I'll try. A triangular garden is to be enclosed by a fence. How much fencing will be required? And whoever is designing this garden has given us an idea of what they would like it to look like. They've given us a diagram like this that has some measurements. Now, before we can just dive right in, we need to ask ourselves an important question. As mathematicians, which one of my tools is best for this problem? I've got three trigonometry tools that I can use: SOHCAHTOA, or the primary trigonometric ratios, the sine law, and also the cosine law. Well, looking into my toolbox, I don't think I'm going to use SOHCAHTOA because that tool only works for a right triangle or a 90-degree triangle, and I definitely do not have a 90-degree triangle here. The sine law looks pretty good though, because the sine law likes to have a matching angle and side length. And I do have one of those here in this triangle. And I also have some more information, meaning that I can set up two fractions equal to each other and then solve for a missing variable. So I'm going to go ahead and try to use the sine law for this problem. But before I can do that, I need to add some labels, and that's our first step. I'm going to need some variables for when I set up the sine law. And since I'm trying to find the length of a fence that goes all the way around, I'm going to need to find the length of this piece, and that's an unknown. So what variable to use? Well, the matching angle is right here, 55 degrees, and it's angle B. So the rule is corners or angles have capital letters and side lengths have lowercase letters. So I'm going to call this lowercase b, and this is what I'll be solving for. If you'll remember, the sine law is two ratios comparing matching side lengths with their angles. So let me show you what this is going to look like. I'm going to say b divided by the sine of its matching angle, which is sine of 55, and we have to compare it, or use the equal sign, to a matching side length and angle. I'm going to use a. It's 22 divided by the sine of its matching angle, which is given as 76. Now that I've got my two ratios set up in step 2, I need to solve for this variable b. So I need to get it by itself on the left-hand side of the equal sign. So to rearrange two fractions as we have here, I'm going to do some cross multiplication. So let's write that out. I'm going to have the sine of 76 times b, or I'll say b times sine of 76, and it's equal to the other red arrow, 22 times the sine of 55. Now I'm getting closer to isolating for b. It's on the left-hand side of the equal sign, but I need to divide both sides by the sine of 76 to get it by itself. And what this does is it creates a 1. Anything divided by itself, as we have here, is a 1. So we can slash it out and just ignore it for the next line. So b will be by itself on the next line. Now everything remaining on the right-hand side of the equal sign, we can just enter into our calculator for the next step. So let's go ahead and bring in our calculator, and I'm just going to enter this fraction, 22 times the sine of 55. I'll hit enter to get my answer for the top and divide it by the sine of 76 and enter once more, and there's my answer. B is roughly 19 meters. So side length B we found to be 19. And don't forget your units. That's important because all side lengths are in meters. We'll stick with meters for side B. Now, unfortunately, we're not quite done. Even though we found this side to be 19 meters, the question wants to know how much fencing is required for the whole garden. So we have to add up all three sides. So I'm going to say LOF for length of fence is equal to 19 plus the other two sides, 17 plus 22. And that's equal to 58 meters. And that is our final answer. We have to be careful, there's an extra step. So we have 58 meters of fencing all the way around the garden. Let's add a concluding statement. My concluding statement just says, therefore, 58 meters of fencing is needed. And now let's give you a shot at finding the length of a fence. I'll give you a garden that looks just like this. And you use the steps I showed on the left to try and find the distance all the way around the garden. Try that one now. For this garden, 104 meters of fencing is needed. In step 1, we set up the unknown side with the variable called e. Then we used e to set up two ratios, writing out the sine law. And then we cross-multiplied and rearranged this equation to isolate for e. Then we entered this into our calculator to arrive with 34 meters for side e. Then we added all three sides together to arrive at our final answer, 104 meters.